The first humans are arriving, Xenographer.
Life on the flagship was not much different than life on Vesta. Fairwing had been spending his time the same way, trying to escape the pit in his stomach with uneasy sleep. The only important difference was he wasn't feeling lonely. He was feeling guilty. Whenever he did get sleep, he got nightmares too. Explosions churning, melting, burning, scorching everything and everyone around him. And he, the only one unharmed, flying through a blackened land, alone for the rest of his life, because he hadn't done enough to stop them. Still, his curiosity got the better of him. A scholarly life inculcated in it could still triumph over his crippling mood for now.
"I'm coming,"
he said and followed his escort. The screens in the command center observed the approaching landing ship from every angle. His eyes focused on one feed from the ship's interior. One human, true to his primitive ancestors, was leaping and bounding around in zero-G to the visible delight of his brethren. Fairwing was cheered up too, seeing him make the most of this awful situation. The mess this human made afterwards mildly rained on his parade, however.
"Xenographer,"
called Admiral Roundclaw. Fairwing dutifully approached the aging avian he loathed even more than himself. He preferred to rest his eyes on a nearby screen while he spoke with the Admiral.
"Do you think they will go along with what we ask?"
the Admiral asked.
"Honestly, sir, I have no idea."
Fairwing sighed.
"Only a clawful of humans have ever traveled into space before, and they all volunteered for it. Imagine yourself in these people's position. You have been forced by lottery to leave your nest and clutch. You have been violently thrown into space on top of a roaring machine. You have no idea where you are or where you're going, only a guess that it's to our fleet."
For his next line, Fairwing didn't have to imagine.
"Worst of all, you have no idea what we're going to do with you."
"They won't act rationally, Admiral,"
a third voice interjected.
"but when have humans ever really done so?"
A regal-looking avian stepped forward, placing himself strategically at the Admiral's shoulder. Fairwing's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed.
"Oh, yes. Xenographer, I wanted to introduce you at some point. This is the xenologist Fantail from Harvest."
Fantail's eyes held a thin smile.
"I've read his work at the Academy."
Fairwing gritted through his beak. He had no love for the scholarly masquerade this supremacist put on.
"Have you? Then you two will get along just fine."
Fantail bowed to the Admiral's compliment.
"I'm sure we will."
Fantail here has suggested some methods of controlling the human population, once we have them on board.
The Admiral continued.
"I wanted your second opinion, Fairwing."
"For now, the standard electric prod we use will work for individual motivation,"
the xenologist explained.
"They're rather large animals, so the shock shouldn't be lethal. If we need a crowd rapidly controlled, we can use lanthanum gas."
"No!"
cried Fairwing.
"Lanthanum gas? Do you want to kill them?"
"We use them to control our smaller mammalian specimens. I see no reason why it would be more lethal to larger ones."
"These aren't macaques, Xenologist. First off, we have no idea if lanthanum gas might be fatal to humans since we've never subjected them to it. Second off, some of them may have pre-existing medical conditions."
"Which is why we specified healthy adults in our demands,"
the xenologist interrupted.
"And lastly, these people are a great deal smarter than the apes you've worked with. They'll realize they're being gassed, and they'll panic. Have you any idea how many get trampled when a crowd runs?"
"They don't seem very smart to me if they panic like animals."
The docking of the landing ship interrupted Fairwing's retort.
"For now, we'll try the prod."
The Admiral quickly sided with the xenologist.
"Lanthanum gas if things go poorly."
His subordinates relayed the order. Fairwing watched the events unfold on screen, with his heart a quick-beating lump in his throat. The humans were naturally shocked by the appearance of a prod-wielding crew bird. After all, they'd never seen avians like him before. When the humans didn't comply, Fairwing shuddered as the crewmate swung his prod against the human unfortunate to be closest to him. The humans had their first chance at vengeance, and they seized the opportunity. Even if they were a little unfamiliar with zero-G, they surged forward with incredible speed, ruffling the feathers of everyone watching from the command center and spreading more than a few hushed comments. The crewbird retreated just in time before one angry hand could yank him in by the tail for a thrashing. He hurriedly sealed the airlock behind him.
"Lengthen gas,"
the Admiral ordered, glancing at his xenologist. Fantail tried to comfort him with an effusive flap of wing. Fairwing held his breath. One by one, the humans went limp, and as soon as they realized what was happening, the stampede up the landing ship began. Fairwing cringed at a particularly powerful kick to the face that sent a man spiraling into the gas below. In only a few moments, they were all unconscious.
"How long will they be out?"
Roundclaw looked unsteadily at the screen. Fairwing wondered if it was concern over damaging his cargo or a genuine concern for these people.
Enough time to move them to the hold, Admiral,
Fantail assured him.
"See to it.
The Admiral beckoned his officers.
And send some doctors down there to make sure they're all still alive."
They watched silently as the crew floated the bodies out the hatch one by one. One of the attending doctors hung his head over one of them. It was the girl who had been struck by the prod. When they hauled her out, they didn't turn left towards the hold. They turned right towards the incinerator. The Admiral shot a glare at Fantail.
"Now we know, Admiral,"
said the xenologist.
"Perhaps we should forgo the prod, but knocking them unconscious is a much more amicable process than guiding uncooperative apes through the ship."
Roundclaw turned to Fairwing.
"Do you have any alternatives, xenographer?"
"Admiral, 1 out of 500 is hardly anything to concern ourselves with,"
Fantail sputtered. The Admiral stood up and roared.
"I agreed to your plan on the condition that it was the least bloody plan we had. I am already sinking in the blood of millions down there, and one more marks the difference between swimming and drowning. So yes, you may not be, but I am very concerned with what our dear xenographer can suggest."
The Admiral's heaving chest eased itself back into its paunch. He slumped down into his chair, shading his eyes with his feathers at the loss of his composure. Fantail was cowed, but not enough to refuse staring disdainfully at his more junior colleague. Fairwing avoided Fantail's eyes. He focused on the sullen Admiral. Now was his chance to make things right, or at least better, and he wasn't going to miss it for the ire of some ornery rooster.
"We must tell them the truth, sir,"
he urged.
"If you cannot bear that, then we must at least tell them part of it."
The Admiral's gaze had drifted, his eyes locked on some faraway point on an imaginary horizon.
"They must have some kind of promise from you, a deal that they can work toward,"
Fairwing insisted.
"We have 50 million coming to us over the next 10 days. A month from now, we'll have 150 million on board. We cannot control them all with gas and prod. We must give them something that will calm them down, something that will let them motivate themselves."
"A reward,"
scoffed Fantail.
"The best reward is the truth of why you robbed them from their homes, their lives, their families, and mates. There has to be a good reason, right?"
The whole command center stared back at Fairwing. Their eyes swirled in a mixture of grief and resentment. The xenographer swallowed. Perhaps he had gone too far. The Admiral waved his wing over his subordinates in a soothing gesture. They returned hesitantly to their business.
"Very well, xenographer. We'll tell them, and you, the truth."